How are you?
Doing good, Chris. How about you?
Good. Welcome to Leading and Serving podcast.
Welcome.
Yes.
You're here. We're here.
We are here. Another great week. It's been a busy week.
Yeah, it has.
I'm sure when this drops, it's going to be still busy. But
yes.
That seems to be the time of year. Like we're kind of revving up into the holidays.
I know.
And like I think when this drop is going to be November already. So it's like, God, it's just getting busier.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, life is accelerating no matter how hard we try and put on the brakes, I think.
I completely agree.
You know.
But I do want to remind everybody that we talked to Jeremy last week. And I am super excited about the fact that we're having this Peace Index.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we
summit.
were just talking about. The life is going so fast. How do we slow down?
Right.
That's what this is about.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, you know what? Make sure you come and join us because this is going to be exciting.
Absolutely.
I do really appreciate the Peace Index. And so I'm super excited that other people are going to be able to get to see the nuts and bolts of it.
And if you want a preview, you can drop back to, I think it's episode 41, where we really spent the majority of the episode on the Peace Index and how that works out in our lives. And so the summit coming up on November 17th, Thursday night from 7 to 9 p.m.
Yep.
Okay. There's going to be some interactiveness to it, where we use the Peace Index book that Jeremy Kubicek wrote that we interviewed last week on the podcast. So catch that up, right?
Right.
We're going to take that 5-part framework of moving from chaos in our lives and just feeling worn and tired and discouraged and feeling hopeless to an extent.
Right.
Of how do we find peace in the midst of all that?
Right.
Fulfillment, purpose around our place, the people, our relationships, our health. There's huge ramifications.
To completely agree.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so empowering about it is like the ramifications of on the backside of it after you do it and look at it a little bit more. Like it's huge.
Right. And I want to the Peace Index tool has been around Giant for a number of years.
Right.
And so when Jeremy did this first release of the book, the book came out 1st of October. There was a giant nationwide gathering. 140 giants are there. Okay, guides just like me, and some of these guides have been teaching the Peace Index themselves to other people for almost a decade.
Oh wow!
And so I had the opportunity to ask a couple of them. What was it like for you in that moment, hearing Jeremy teach on the Peace Index once again?
Right.
And every single person that I've talked to so far is just like, what a moment. I realized that I had not been I'd been ignoring this part of my life. And I realized how much that was dragging down my Peace Index.
Oh, wow.
And now just in the 2 weeks since, I've spent time improving that area and my Peace Index is already rising.
Wow.
And these are people who have done it. Have been through it themselves. It is a timeless, impacting, transformational tool. And so it's well worth your time. It only costs $10 to go to the summit.
Right.
It's at Dice Walk Country Club in Greenwood.
From 7 to 9? Is that
from
what
7
you said?
to 9, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. $10 to get in. 32 if you want to book included on that. Super easy.
We'll be there.
Super easy. Yeah.
Super excited.
Yep. We'll be, you'll get to hear us.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that.
If you've only listened in audio, now you get to see us in person.
Right.
Whew. Highlight of your night.
Right.
Yeah. Moving on.
So what are we talking about today?
Hey, we just finished going through the 5 voices. Okay. We listened to Jeremy talk about the Peace Index. What is all this good for? Why is it worth being self-aware as a leader? Why is it worth that? Because if you hold up a mirror,
right,
oftentimes you kind of just want to look the other way, right?
Yeah. There's days.
Because somebody I think is had a birthday just recently, right?
Well, it was a little while ago, but it's yes. We're
will
trying to
reveal no details.
Not that we're worried about it, but it's just it's another year.
It's another year. But oftentimes when we look in the mirror, we don't want to take that honest assessment of ourselves. And so a good leader, somebody who's fighting for the highest good of those around him, is someone who takes that moment to ask the question, what is it like to be on the other side of me? To hold that leader mirror up and say, what is it like? being on the other side of my desk or on the other side of the conference room table or the other side of the water cooler, when you're having these conversations with people you lead or your family, people you love,
right?
Or other organizations that you volunteer for or you play, where you play in the community. What's it like to be on the other side of me? And a good leader asks that question. Because, if you ever been to dinner and you're sitting there and, I don't know, most of the way through you finish your food and you go to the bathroom or something. You turn and look in the mirror and you've got a big glob of mustard sitting on your chin. And you go back to the table and you're like, people, how long has it been? We just didn't know how to tell you, right? That's what this is about, is that a good leader is always going to look in the mirror and say, what's it like? Do I have broccoli in my teeth? Do I have, mustard on my shirt? I had a good friend in high school that we were singing at a church. We sang in a quartet. We were the after dinner entertainment for a potluck or, something like that.
Right.
He dropped brisket all down the front of his shirt, on his tie.
Oh, no.
It was a mess. Huge, like half of the plate.
Oh my goodness!
Barbecue. It was just bad. And and we had to get up and sing after that.
Right.
It was like a 30, 40-minute program.
Oh wow!
And so we joked about it. We made it work. But
right.
You can ignore stuff like that, or you can accept it and deal with it.
Right.
And so when you look in the mirror, you want to ask a couple different questions.
Okay.
And imagine like a slider, left or right, okay? On either side of the slider is, on one side is reactive, and the other side is proactive.
Okay.
So what kind of leader am I? Am I proactive? Am I thinking in advance of what may happen, or am I just reactive? When a table or when a problem hits the table in front of me, do I just throw it out there?
Right.
Or have I already thought about, different scenarios and situations of how I will respond in these ways?
Right.
So are you reactive or are you proactive? Okay. Which side of that slider do you move yourself toward? Okay. Next one is accidental or intentional. So accidental, what's the, blind squirrel finds nut every once in a while, is that you as a leader?
Yeah.
Or are you the squirrel that's intentionally packing it away for the winter? It's very similar to proactive. So are you looking at things in advance? Are you being intentional about how you are leading rather than just being accidental and, just hoping for the best?
Right.
Okay. And then the third slider that you want to think about is inconsistent to consistent. Okay. Do I respond the same way?
Yeah.
When different things happen, do I treat this employee the same as this other one, or do I, how do I operate on the team? How do I, communicate? Am I consistent? So a great leader holds up that mirror and asks those questions. Am I being proactive? Am I being intentional?
Right.
Am I being consistent? Because the danger is if you're on the other side of the sliders on those things, you're just a reactive. Accidentally, sometimes you get the right response.
Right.
You're just reacting, accidental, and you're inconsistent.
Right.
When something bad happens, one time you take it with a grain of salt and everything is smoothed and you work through it brilliantly. Another time it's Mount Vesuvius.
Right.
You blow up, you leave widespread destruction behind you. Are you reactive, accidental, and inconsistent? And imagine what that does to your team.
Yeah.
What that does to your mission, your organization, the people around you. If it's your family, that's a hard leader to be around.
Yes, it is.
Really hard. And so are we willing to ask what it's like to be on the other side of me? And that's why we do the 5 voices. That's why we do the Peace Index. These tools are designed to help us as leaders to look at ourselves and go, I'm a creative, and so when I have these great ideas, or at least I think they're great ideas,
right?
I have to learn to communicate them well.
Right.
Otherwise, people may dismiss my voice around the table because I'm not making any sense.
Right.
So how do I clarify those ideas to communicate those better around the table?
I like it.
So a good leader looks at a mirror and says, what is it like to be on the other side of me? So
that's good.
There you go.
That's good.
And, and so this Peace Index, that we're really spending a lot of time on right now, outside of this episode, but is a huge tool to decide where am I at,
right?
What are the changes I need to make, and what am I going to double down on? So,
yeah, a great time of year. I mean, I know we talked about goals earlier, or last month in October.
Yeah,
towards the beginning of October, I do believe it was, and it's like, okay, so in the midst of all that, touching on the idea of reflecting upon ourselves in the midst of our goals, as well as trying to figure out what's for next year.
Yeah,
these are good, hard questions to be wrestling with a little bit, because inevitably good growth comes from insight, and if you don't take the time to try to look at some of this insight, it's hard to grow.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Speaking of insight, we are getting ready to chat with our friend Cody.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about Cody?
Yeah. So Cody Johnson is a young leader in our community who, honestly, as you're going to hear in his story here in a few minutes, has been, through a lot. We'll just leave it at that.
Right.
You're going to find there's a number of podcast stories coming up. Yeah. We're only exploring one of them. So, if you host another podcast, listen in, because you might find some good interview material here. So, but Cody has just recently started his own business called Oil Change Near Me. And I don't think you heard this story. I asked him this later. I was like, where'd you get the name Oil Change Near Me? And he said, I was going to Google competitors. And so I typed in oil change, and Google adds in near me, because it thinks you're looking for an oil change near me.
Right.
And he's like, oh, thanks, Google.
That's hilarious.
And that's how he got his business name.
That's awesome.
And so he does mobile oil changes, preventive maintenance for cars wherever you are at.
Yeah.
Saving you time, saving you money.
I love that idea.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It is.
Yeah. It sounds like total luxury, but the more I think about it, I'm like, no,
like you mean I can go do whatever I'd still do, and then you can come take care of my stuff for me?
Like I could take a nap while you do it?
Right.
Okay.
All I can think is sitting in the middle of Jiffy Lube, waiting there going, when are they going to be done? When are they going to be done?
Right. You can only watch so much YouTube.
Right.
While you're
I'm bored out of my mind. Oh, I've got stuff to do.
Okay, Cody, here we come, buddy.
Yep.
Save us, man. Yep. All right, so we're going to jump over and talk with Cody.
Sounds good.
See you in a minute.
Well, welcome, Cody. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Really excited.
So, give us a little bit about you. Give us a little bit of background history about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd life start?
Sure. I'm 28 years old. Grew up in the small town of Linton, Indiana.
Okay.
If you haven't heard of it, I'm not surprised. Town of about 5,000. So you compare that to the Center Grove school system.
That's pretty much the Center Grove High School, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I graduated with 67 in my class. The town over from me, Duggar, they graduated with 12 the same year.
Sweet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So very small town. I grew up on a gravel road between two cornfields. And so to come to the big city of Greenwood, is a big change. I graduated high school in 2012, and that's kind of where my whole story began. Mm-hmm. I bounced around. I went to Illinois, Tennessee, Florida, Ohio, and ended up back in Indy.
Did you go there for jobs, or did you just go there because that's where you wanted to be at different points?
A little bit of everything. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I went
just kind of
some places for jobs, some places
for fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll call it fun. Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what brought you back to Indy then?
Girlfriend. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually went back to live with my parents for a little bit, and met a girl, Kelsey, and up here I wanted to be closer to her. So
Right. So in the time that you were hitting all these different states, what type of jobs did you do, or any schooling in there post high school?
Schooling, yeah, that's a fun
School
story.
of Hard Knocks, right?
Oh man, yeah, that's a big part of my life journey. Yeah,
Okay.
was schooling, because I failed out, dropped out, failed out, dropped out, and then finally went to another school. So went to school 5 separate times. So that was part of the moving.
Okay.
And then yeah,
Did you not enjoy it, or just were having too much fun, or?
well, that's all part of the story.
Okay.
Yeah, a redemptive story.
Okay.
God's grace through my life, whole
Okay.
life, from the time I was 18, because I was going into racing, and that was my whole
Racing.
yeah
Okay.
yeah, racing cars.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to do, and then I was stupid, and I dropped my sponsors, and that is where the whole journey begins.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
when I dropped the sponsors, and it was just a whirlwind. That's why I went to all those different states. Is because I was trying to figure out what I was trying to do.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
So you were trying to find your sponsors in the process of that, or just trying to
no,
find?
trying to find my way through life after
Okay.
that. Yeah, because my dad wanted me to go to school.
Okay. Oh,
and I did not want to go to school.
because you didn't enjoy school, or?
Right? No,
'Cause-
because school was for people who wanted to work 9 to 5s.
And that was the way you thought about it.
Right.
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 That makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I never wanted to go to school. So yeah, I just bounced around state to state to state and school to school to school.
Okay.
And
Trying to fulfill your dad's dream in the process of trying to figure out your own.
yeah, really just trying to figure out my own, and then
Okay.
also hearing my parents' voices in my head too,
Right.
saying, "You need to go to school. You need to do this. You
Right.
need to do that. You need to fit the mold."
Right.
Yeah, and never feeling like
You could fit the mold.
right,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a hard dynamic to walk.
Yeah.
As a graduating high school student trying to figure out what's
Right.
next in life, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. What was it like losing that dream of racing? What did that feel like?
Oh man, that sucked. It crushed my soul.
Really?
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, I was 18, and I had 2 of the best sponsors in the industry,
Oh,
Really?
wow.
and but they wouldn't take me up the ladder,
Okay.
so that's why I dropped them. Sometimes you have to do that in racing. You have to shed your skin so you can
Right.
keep climbing, and so I dropped them, and I knew it was a big leap, but I had just always had somebody there to pick me up from the time I was 4 years old to 18.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
And here I am, 18, and officially an adult in the government's eyes.
Right.
And
Right.
I have nothing. I have basically no money.
Yep.
Now I have no sponsors.
Right.
Because nobody just picked it right back up.
Right.
Right.
Right. Nobody. I was trying to get into sprint car racing and then IndyCar
Okay.
or NASCAR, and nobody was there to take me up that ladder.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was like the deep passion as a kid. That's what you wanted to do forever
Yeah.
and ever.
Yeah. So actually, my story is it's not the typical, well, I worked my 9 to 5 and I got tired and I
Right.
quit and I told my boss, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it better than you.
Right.
Or, I had parents that wanted to be, or they were entrepreneurs and they said, well, you should be an entrepreneur. It was never like that.
No.
It was.
What did your parents do?
So my dad worked for John Deere for 15 years.
Okay.
And then he's worked for the Navy, the Crane Naval Base,
Okay.
for 20 some years now. And then my mom has worked a lot of social, what's that called?
Social work?
Yeah, social work. Yeah.
Yeah, social.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, really my story is a lineage. The Bible uses lineages. And it doesn't go back to my great-great-grandfather's great-grandfather Jethro or something like that.
Right.
But it goes back to my grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
He was a racer
Really?
back in the 60s, and he was really good.
Okay.
Usually top 2 in the state.
Oh, wow.
So then my dad wanted to race cars too. And my grandpa said, absolutely not. It's too fast, too dangerous. You're not doing it.
All right.
So then when my dad got his license, he started racing on the streets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, got in a lot of trouble, wrecked a lot of cars.
Oh my.
He's even got a story where he flipped a car multiple times with 2 girls in the car. Lucky he didn't kill them.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So then when I was 2, my parents took me to the local dirt go-kart track. They could have picked NASCAR, IndyCar. I don't know why they picked go-karts, but that's what they did.
Right.
And the story goes, they're on the second row of bleachers, and I'm on the first. And the carts are all going. And this isn't Rascal's Fun Zone type
Right.
carts,
No,
right?
no. These are like legit.
Yeah. They're even back in the 90s, they were pushing 40, 50 mile an hour on this tiny 8th dirt track.
Right.
Okay.
So they're fun. You know, I'm having a good time. But then when the Outlaws came out, the big dogs, I turned to my parents and I said, I want to do that. And my dad, he said he laughed, but in the back of his mind, he's thinking, oh, well, that's what I said to my dad.
Well,
Right.
And I know what happened when my dad said no. So
Right.
he said, okay, well, when you're older, we'll take you back. And he was true to his promise. When I was 4, they brought me back, and we went back to the pits after the races. And he got to talking to some guy whose girl was in the kid kart class, the baby karts. And I got to go out in one of those and turn a few laps and came back in. And for Christmas, they spent all their money and got, you know, a kid kart for me and a go-kart for my dad and a trailer and some tools. And
You were 4,
4, yeah.
starting your racing career.
Yeah, about waist high, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so we went, you know, that next year to the same dirt track and started racing. The first race, I spun out every lap coming out of turn 1. Second race was a bit better, and the third race I won. And my dad, he's a genius. The dude is super smart.
Yeah.
And he and I went on a tear for like 14 years. From the time I was 4 to 18, we started, you know, running locally, and then state, you know, regional, and then we started going national, and we just won everything.
Wow.
I mean, for 14 years. Track records, I still have track records all over the Midwest. I mean, we were doing it good. We were doing
Wow.
it really
That's
good.
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I even got to drive for some people like Tony Stewart as I was, you know, moving up, went to mini sprints and, you know, midgets, and got to do a lot of cool things. So my plan A was to be a race car driver, and
Okay.
I had no plan B.
Right.
So then when I was 18, you know, I was about to graduate high school, and I wanted to keep climbing that ladder. So I dropped my sponsors. And like I said, they were the 2 best sponsors in the industry.
Wow.
And so I dropped them because they couldn't take me to the next level.
Right.
And nobody was there to pick me up. So
And
here I am.
Is when you say next level, that's something like where you actually get paid to do it, or it's
Right.
still just a hobby?
Right. Yeah. So I was getting paid a little bit.
Okay.
I was considered semi-pro.
Okay.
You know.
Because I'm from a guy who doesn't understand the racing industry. Like I just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah. It's hard for a high schooler to be considered professional, but
Right.
yeah. So I would say semi-pro would be
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So yeah, I wanted to keep climbing, go to sprint cars, and then IndyCar or NASCAR. But yeah, nobody was there to pick me up. And my dad, I could point to the table at the Linton McDonald's where my dad sat me down with a magazine, IUPUI magazine, and he said, we need to talk about school. And I was like, oh, you know, my heart sank.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I went to IUPUI for motorsports engineering, and I was an honor roll student all the way through high school.
Oh wow.
Went to college, and I failed out with a 1.6 GPA. I mean, it was nuts. And it was a surprise too. I was really working hard, and then it came time to look at my grades at the end of the semester, and I was really shocked. F. Okay. So I kind of fled from Indy, and I went back to my parents' house, and I was thinking, gosh, what am I going to do? So I went to Vincennes University for their orientation day, and shout out to VU for having the absolute worst orientation day ever. So I went there, and I've got no idea what I'm doing, right? And I go to the library, and this dude comes up. He's like, "Hey, what's your name? I told him, and he said, okay, what building are you going to go into? I said, I just came here for the orientation day. I'm in the library, right? He said, oh, well, what's your major? I said, I don't know. That's what I'm here for. He said, okay, well, what building are you going to? I said, I don't know. So he said, he gave me this map, and it's got like the nursing building, the athletic building, and the technical building or technology building.
Yeah.
And that's the one that I went to. I said,
There you
well,
go.
technology, that sounds right.
Why not?
Yeah. So I went there, and it was empty. There was one lady at a desk, so I went over to that desk, and she says, "Hey, what's your name? What are you here for?" I said, "Well, I'm here for orientation. I was at the library." She said, "Okay, what major?" I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Okay, well, here's this pamphlet, and it's a pamphlet with about 30 some different majors in the technology building."
Oh my
And she
goodness.
says, "So which major do you want to go into?" And I said, I don't know. She said, okay, well, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and hopefully by the time I'm out, you'll have figured out your major.
Oh
I was
wow.
Yeah, so I'm looking through this pamphlet thinking I'm trying to alter the course of my life while Margaret's in the bathroom taking a dookie, she came back and she said, "Have you figured it out?" And I said, "What's precision machining?" And she said, "Well, they cut metal." I said, "That sounds like something I would do, probably."
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I started precision machining and did that for 3 semesters. And I was super good at it, 3.8, 3.9 GPA all the way through that. But I didn't like it. I couldn't see myself doing it. So I went back to IUPUI. I dropped out of VU, went back to IUPUI for motorsports engineering, tried it again. Some things in my life had changed. I was older, so I thought,
Right.
okay, I'm going to do this again.
Right.
And I failed worse with a 1.3 GPA.
Oh my.
Yeah. And what I figured out was happening was I was spending all my time working on race cars. I was in the garages because they have multiple garages, multiple teams, and I was on all of them, either driving or crew chiefing or just working on cars. So that's what I was doing. So I decided, okay, this isn't going to work. So I went back to VU for precision machining, and I was settling, and went through 1 semester, and I did it even better, like a 3.95 GPA, and I got done in half a semester. So I was doing really well, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But I was so unsettled. So I got into fitness at the same time.
Yeah.
And so because I was done in half a semester, I spent the last half not going to class like I was supposed to and spending 5 to 8 hours in the gym. And yeah, I would pack lunches, multiple meals, and go to the gym. And I decided that if I'm not going to be a professional in the racing world, I'm going to be a professional in something.
Mm-hmm.
So I gained 50 pounds in 4 months at VU.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It was nuts. So I decided I'm going to be a physique competitor. I'm going to be the first professional sponsored physique competitor with a heart problem. I've got lower aortic stenosis. So that's what I was going to do. So I met a girl while I was there, and I bought a ring and sold my beautiful truck, and I bought a family car. And she went down to Knoxville to Johnson Bible College, and I moved down to Knoxville to be close to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a job at a Gold's Gym as a trainer, and I was like, cool, this is what I'm doing. This is a great start.
Right.
I'm doing pretty good in fitness. I was now 185 pounds and like 5% body fat or something like that. And turns out it's not a good idea to go to a brand new city in a brand new career, not knowing really anything about what you're doing. So I didn't have any clients.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So about 3 or 4 months in, I got evicted from the place that I was living, and I went homeless for several months. I was living in my car, my family car.
Right.
I had a dog at the time, so
Oh,
he and I
goodness.
were living in the car together. And then it got cold, and my manager, who kind of knew what was going on but didn't really know what was going on, she took the dog, and I moved into the gym. I slept on the concrete floor. It was a 24-hour gym, And what I would do is I would wake up at 5, go in the showers, shower, change, work from 6 to midnight. And at midnight to 2, I would work out, do my own workout, and then fall asleep on the concrete floor in the kids' care room. And then, 3 hours later, get up and do it again.
Oh my goodness.
So nobody knew. Nobody knew that I was homeless.
my
It was
goodness.
crazy. And, I wasn't on the street corner begging or anything like
Right,
that. I
right.
was just trying to grind and get it done.
Okay.
So yeah, I finally, I made enough money to get an apartment and pay the down payment. And I was moving in the next day. I signed and everything, and I wrecked my car that night.
Oh no.
So I called my girlfriend. I was like, "Hey, could I use your car to work out something with the shop?" She said, "No." I said, "No." She said, "Just go home." I said, "Woman, I haven't had a home for months to be close to you." And she said, "I don't care. Just go home." So yeah, I cried for 8 hours. My parents came down, loaded the car up, and drove me home. And it was so nice of them. And the dog. We picked up the dog. So man, I was in my room for 3 weeks, just bawling and writing notes, letters to this girl. Turns out she never opened them, but that's another story. So then my dad finally got me out of the slump that I was in. He said, "You need to, get over it." So I did. I went to Terre Haute, met a guy who applied for a bunch of jobs, and he said, "Dude, I got a job offer down in Florida, managing this gym." But the guy asked if I had a friend that would manage it with me. Would you do it? I was like, "Sure. I don't have anything else going on." So
Right.
we moved his whole life, my whole life, down to Florida.
With no car, right?
Well, I got my car fixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I was like, man, how are we getting to Florida?
Right,
Okay,
right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, we moved down there, and I went from the beginning of 2016, not having a home, sleeping on a concrete floor, to living in this dude's mansion by August of 2016.
Oh wow.
So big change, right? Obviously, it's not my mansion, but I was still
Right.
living
In
a
a mansion.
Yeah,
It was pretty
why
cool.
not?
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah. But that story is a Dateline story. It was a crazy. Basically, I got lured down there, and he asked for like sexual favors, and it was a bad deal. So, any true crime podcast people out there, I've got an episode for you. Yeah, that story alone is nuts.
We've got one about love letters and true crime.
Right.
We're gonna have to branch out.
I think I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyhow, I fled from Florida. I mean,
Good for you.
I ran north as far as I could.
Yes.
In my old Pontiac Grand Am.
Yeah.
Nice.
And on my way back north was when I said, okay, I've been doing a lot of stuff, taking a lot of risks. I've got to go back to school because here I am. I'm going to settle again.
Right.
But I got to figure it out because at the very least, by the end of the time that I'm done with school, I want to be more valuable in the marketplace. It's
Yeah.
not about getting a degree. It's about being valuable.
Right.
So I went to UNOH because they were direct competitors with IUPUI. So that's how I knew about them. And 3 weeks after I got home, I started school at UNOH. And I tell you what, that was the biggest change in my life ever. I was 26, 27, something like that. No. I was 25, I think. And 4.0 all the way through. I think I ended up graduating with a 3.98. So,
wow.
I mean, yeah, did really well. I was on the cover of multiple magazines, did a lot of their advertisements for them.
This is back in motorsports.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was got degrees in motorsports and automotive.
Okay.
So, yeah, I really did a lot. I traveled, most of the country while I was there too. As a full-time student, I was an ambassador for the school. It was amazing. So, I graduated from there in 2018, and I realized, okay, that kind of proved to me that I can do something, right?
Right. Right.
But when I got out of there, I didn't have any. I had job offers, but none were what I really wanted. And I decided while I was at UNOH that I didn't want to work on race cars. Which is funny because when I went to UNOH, I said I do want to work on race cars. I never want to work on automobiles.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I left there, had no idea what I was going to do. I worked for Sarah Fisher for a little bit, and then I got a job offer from the naval base, Crane Navy, down in southern Indiana, where my dad works. And I went down there, worked for a year and 56 days. It was a terrible year and 56 days. I almost committed suicide 3 times, which
Oh my
we
goodness.
can talk about the psychology of suicide and what that really means. But that's a different topic. And I left there, and really that whole time I was there, I was just praying, God, please get me out of here and get me out of here alive, because I don't know what I'm doing. But I just know that it can't be this, right? So God got me out of there. And when I left there, I told everybody I was starting a trucking company, a hotshot trucking company. And there was a guy there who said, I'll never forget this. He said, okay, we'll see you back in 6 months. And I was like, oh, I hate this place and I hate you. But I will always remember that. It motivates me.
Right.
And when I left there, I had negative $452.66 in my bank account on top of my $100,000 of debt.
Right.
So I really had nothing. And I've actually got that receipt in my office from the bank. So
wow.
that motivates me too.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I left Crane, was going to start this trucking company. My girlfriend's dad, Kevin, he's got a construction business. And he said, well, while you're trying to do that, you can work for me for a couple months.
Yeah.
And I'm not very good at construction. So he paid me to basically be a ladder holder. And he paid me really well to be a ladder holder. But we're coming up into the winter of 18, I believe it was. Or no, 20. Winter of 20. Wow. And, in the construction business, things slow down when it comes to exterior, especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he had to make 3 cuts in the business, and I knew that I had to be one of them, right? So for his sake and my sake and everybody else's sake, I need to get out of there. And I ended up working with a pastor restoring cars. I called him. That was a connection that Kelsey had. And I called him. I said, hey, I heard that you restore cars. He said, yeah, I used to. I don't really now. But I've got this Bronco that I've had sitting around for 6 years. I could pay you cash while we get that done, and then we'll just go from there. So I started working with him. But I guess to back up, in the construction business, when I was holding the ladder, that's actually where the idea for Oil Change Near Me came about, my current company.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was holding this ladder and I was praying, God, winter's coming up. I don't know what I'm doing. I know I need to be cut. It's not a trucking company. I've had all these failures.
Mm-hmm.
Is this just another failure in my life story? And for the first time ever, I heard God say something to me, and it was crazy. And what I heard was, go back to the basics. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
We're talking like water and bread?
Right. Yeah. No, those are the essentials.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No. So what I decided that meant was business basics. Business 101 is, what does the world need that I can provide? Right.
Right.
So I thought, okay, well, I've got 20 some years experience in automotive and racing. The world needs maintenance on their vehicles. I don't have any money, so I can't get a shop. I've got terrible credit, so I can't get a loan for a shop.
Right.
But I've got this truck. I'm going to do mobile. I'm going to, wherever people are, I'm going to change their oil in their driveway, their parking lot, wherever.
Right.
And so, I was still holding the ladder and praying, is this it? And I pulled out my phone and I started looking up shops around me, my competitors.
Well, still holding the ladder with one hand, I hope. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Some poor guy was on the 3rd floor.
Right.
I was not doing a good job.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I looked up my competitors. I saw Valvoline, Jiffy Lube, blah blah blah, and I thought, okay, these are obviously great brands. What's my brand going to be? And I looked up in the search bar, and I had typed in oil change near me. And I said, oh my gosh,
That's it.
that's the name. And so I went on the InBiz website, and sure enough, the LLC wasn't taken. So I took that right then and there.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, and then it was really cool. Within a half a day, the logo, the flying jug, the flying oil jug,
Yeah.
and the colors, the demographic, everything was laid out in less than half a day. It was wild.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, it was really cool. So every time I wonder about if I'm doing the right thing, I look back at that and I say, okay, yeah, surely I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
So yeah, while I was trying to build the back end of the business, the legal stuff, the website, social media.
And so that was during the winter of early
Yeah.
21. So that's COVID-esque.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of businesses closed because of COVID, but
Right.
really COVID helped me because I offered sanitation and contactless,
Right.
services. So that helped me on the residential side.
Oh, that's
Okay.
great.
So 18 months later, then, where is Oil Change Near Me at?
Yeah, so we still do residential, but commercial is kind of our bread and butter. In fact, my first client ever was a guy named John Martin. I was working on these restorations, and he pulled his car in, and he said, "Hey, I've got a Ford Explorer that it died. Can you look at it?" I said, "Sure." I don't know this guy from Adam, right?
Right.
And I said, well, I'm going to need to do an oil change on it to see the health of the engine. And that alone kind of like blew his mind. He's like, what do you mean, the health of the engine? I said, I just need to see, it's kind of like blood, right? Doing blood
Okay,
work on an engine.
yeah.
Sure enough, it had metal in the oil. So I called him. I said, hey, John, bad news. Your engine's blown, or it's blowing up. The professionalism, I guess, that I showed was enough to him that he said, I heard that you're starting this to-your-door preventative maintenance service. Is that right? I said, yeah, yes, sir. He said, well, I've got a fleet of vehicles. Would you be willing to work on them? And I thought, I've never thought about working on fleet vehicles, but yes, sir, I could do that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know the legal aspect of all
Right.
this stuff, but sure, yeah, I can do that.
An engine's an engine,
Right.
right?
Right.
Doesn't matter who owns it.
Right. Yeah. So that's how I even got the idea of working on fleet vehicles.
Yeah. Which is a great business.
Yeah. It so with residential, it's obviously a great service because it eliminates a lot of pain points for people. They don't have to go and sit and wait on vehicles in a dirty shop or
Right.
in their car while it's being jacked up in the air and all that stuff. But for businesses, it actually saves them a ton of money. A little plug for Oil Change Near Me. It saves an average of 44%
Really?
on maintenance costs because they don't have to pay somebody to go and sit and wait
for
for
the
an
vehicle.
hour.
Right.
If you pay somebody $25 an hour, that's about what it takes for an oil change to drive there, sit there and wait. I've heard of some people waiting for an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah.
So that's 2 hours right there. That's
Right.
$50. But the big one is downtime. So if you pay somebody $25 an hour, you should at least be making $50 an hour off of them, right? So when they are at the shop, they're not working. So you're paying them to not work, and you're not making the money that you would have been making in an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So what we do is we service vehicles during company meetings or before or after hours, or even doing house calls while they're doing house calls. We have serviced vehicles at their customers' homes, in the driveway or alongside the road, whatever that customer is comfortable with.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So
it's-
if you have a fleet vehicle that's at a customer's house, you can go service it without disturbing the customer or
exactly.
wow, that's
Exactly.
impressive.
Yeah, we've done brake work, oil changes, stuff like that. While they're the painters or construction workers are getting tools out of the back.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And we don't want to do big jobs while
You don't
we're
want to do the
there.
oil or an engine swap?
Right, yeah. Yeah, engine swaps and training swaps are two of the things that we don't offer.
Right. Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Hey, this is sitting out in my front yard. Can you do the engine swap real
Yeah.
quick for me? I need to be somewhere at 5.
Right.
right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've done one transmission job. I replaced it on jack stands.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was in a garage, temp controlled and everything. So the elements were not a factor, but gosh,
It's a lot of work.
I did it by myself, and it took, 10 hours or whatever it took. I don't remember.
Right.
And I think I strained every muscle in my legs and my hips trying to push that thing up there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a lot of work.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we don't do transmission
Yeah.
swaps.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So 18 months in,
Yeah.
you've built a residential presence. You've
Mm-hmm.
learned to do fleet work and commercial work. You've just hit a new milestone that you have a new hire, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
I got
not
new-
just you, not just Cody anymore, right?
Right. Yeah. So when I first started, obviously it was just me. I banked on my abilities as a tech to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly, outgrew myself. So started looking
Mm-hmm.
for people, and the whole vision is to not be by myself. Right? Is
Right.
to create this big franchise, and it'll be the first successful franchise in the mobile lube industry. By the
Oh,
way,
wow.
yeah. There aren't many in the world.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a very common business model.
No.
So what are your milestones to get to that?
Sure.
That if it was just you a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
you just hired your first employee.
Yeah.
What is it going to take to get to that, big brand franchise?
Right. So I think the model is going to be each franchise will have up to probably 10 or 15 technicians in their region. So each franchise is going to have a region, probably about 15 miles radius, and it'll be about 10 to 15 techs, and we can service about 2,000 vehicles per year with that model.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one metro area like Indianapolis might have multiple regions within it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Indy could probably host 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Man,
So-
that's
It's been an interesting. I'm glad you gave your full story because it is definitely a process of how to get there, and it's been great that you've had support as well as from a guy who's gone through some failures. What would you say to other business owners that are struggling with the idea that they're going through a failure right now?
Yeah.
Because it's not easy.
Right.
None of it's easy, right?
Yeah. I think being in tune with yourself, being in tune, if you're a Christian, be in tune with the Spirit, with God, pushing through, not giving up, and having faith. That's kind of been the big theme in my life is just have faith to go to that next step. Because you've mentioned multiple times that I'm kind of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy, and that's mostly true.
Yeah.
And luckily, that's kind of worked out.
yeah. I mean, it's helped you be flexible.
Right.
Right.
But in your growth process now, though, I know you and we've talked a lot about putting in process and procedures so that you can enable that growth
Right.
in others
Right.
to help you and your vision grow.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. Yeah. It's been super cool to watch, even just to watch the growth of this company. To look back at my life, and through my grandparents and my dad's life, is really cool. But to see the growth of this company has been amazing. See, one of my goals for my first year of the business was to double the number of my biggest competitors first year. And what ended up happening is I had some part-time guys. I would say, hey, we've got this job and it's, let's say 20 vehicles and, this is what we're doing. It's going to take 5 hours and I'll pay you whatever. So it was just me and then, some part-time people. But what we ended up doing was quadrupling the competitors' numbers in the first
wow.
year. Yeah. Yeah. It was
Are you
super
saying like the Jiffy Lube Valvoline competitor?
cool. No.
The
The mobile.
space.
Yeah.
Okay,
mobile
mobile
space.
space.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's
Gotcha.
right. Yeah.
So there is one or two out there that you can compete against, or that you have a ballpark understanding of what they're.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, in fact, the competitor that I'm talking about, he's an IndyCar driver that has this business, and he's up on the northwest side, and of course we're down on the south side. It is always funny because we do drive next to their vans sometimes to kind of wave and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're 6 years in.
Okay.
So
Okay.
obviously we're 5 years behind as far as starting, but
But your numbers are looking pretty good.
oh yeah, the numbers are
awesome.
fantastic. Yeah, and he actually had I think 5 technicians in the first year.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And it was just me and the part-time guys. But it's been a lot of blessings, a lot of things just really falling into place, and you got to wonder how does that happen. And
Right.
there's no human explanation for that. So
Right.
yeah,
Now, if I understand, just to clarify, you're in starting this business.
Mhm.
You're bootstrapping it yourself, right?
Right.
You found it investors, or like you said, you had minimal credit. I mean, this is from your back pocket, basically,
yeah,
right?
yeah. This is
Okay.
a cash flow business for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done everything out of pocket. I mean, to go from negative $452 leaving Crane
Right.
to now, we're able to cash flow all this stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I had some cash from doing those restos, but man, it wasn't much cash.
Right.
I had
Right.
enough to pay for parts and my truck payment. And
Right.
Yeah.
that was about it. We did, let's say the first vehicle, and that got me through to the next vehicle, and then that got me through to the next two.
Yeah.
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 It's,
Man.
it's been
So
super.
you've really been grinding it.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
So if you were to go back to the start of the 18 months with,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing that number out, but yeah, back to the beginning of Oil Change Near Me.
Yeah. 16 months.
Is it 16?
16. Yeah.
Well, okay. I also find there's some irony in that 2 race car drivers are racing to the top of this mobile oil change industry
Right.
in Indianapolis.
I've never thought of that.
That's and you're
That's
like,
motivation,
no
isn't it?
way.
and you're like driving by his van, waving, going, "See you in my dust," you know?
Yeah.
Love it.
Except
Anyway.
he is an IndyCar driver, so
Right.
That's
he's
okay.
made it.
But hey, he can do his thing.
Right.
So going back to the beginning, I'm curious, is there something you would have done different in those early months? Or is there something that you did that, when somebody else is starting a business, you're like, you don't miss this step. This was crucial for me.
One thing that I would tell people not to miss is the legal stuff,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
Because in the midst of the story of moving around and doing all this stuff, I did have a business selling online fitness programs and diet programs back before it was cool, because now everybody's doing it.
Right.
Right.
It's kind of like photographers. But it was totally illegitimate. I didn't pay taxes. I actually didn't know that I had to pay taxes on it. It was bad.
Okay.
So yeah, to think, man, I could have really gotten in trouble with that one. Luckily, I didn't do hardly anything with it. But yeah, to look back and say, okay, it was good to really step it out, because being a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy, I would normally just go.
Wing it.
Right.
Go.
Yeah,
Yep.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But with this one, I actually sat down and did my homework and talked to the right people, and figured out this is what I have to do, and then this and this and this.
Don't cut corners on those early days on the
Yeah.
reality side.
Yeah,
All right.
man, I really
to know.
wanted to take off, but
Yeah.
not
Okay.
cutting corners was good.
All right. Well, dude, an amazing story.
Yes, for
Um,
sure. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the redemption and the stick-to-itedness. I don't know if that's a word, but it is
Yeah,
now.
it is. Now.
And I mean, you've got multiple podcast interviews within you, and I love it.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
I hope so.
how would people find you? If
Yeah,
they
if
want
they're
to know
interested,
more
get the
about you
oil
or
change
oil
or-
change or services,
Yeah. So they can go to the website oilchangeusa.net. We haven't gotten the .com because it's going to cost about $50,000.
Ouch.
Yeah, yeah. So oilchangeusa.net. You can schedule a service there. You can send a request for service on one of the pages there. You can reach out to me directly at cody@oilchangeusa.net or give us a call at 877-404-4645.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, man, all the best to you and
Yes, thanks for sharing.
building
all
a
that.
business in a way that's, I mean, you kind of think, oh, it's 2022. Everything's been done.
I gotta say, that your determination is amazing.
Yeah.
I love that about you. I love the fact that you have grinded hard, and you've done an excellent job of not stopping.
Well, I appreciate that, but
Yeah.
I've definitely had some moments where I thought,
And I bet
this might be the end.
I bet you're 10 times stronger because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
100%.
would say so, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, y'all. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back with you here in just a moment.
Sounds good. Thanks. Jason, you know,
Yeah.
I do really appreciate his story.
Man.
It was,
It's a story of resilience
yes.
and redemption.
yes.
And I just love that there's so many loved ones in his life that didn't back away
Right.
when it would have been easy to.
Well, and he didn't back away.
Yeah.
Like it just,
Yeah.
I mean, he just kept plugging away.
Right.
And just, that was a lot for, I mean,
Right.
I don't know if my path was that rough that I would have struggled a little bit more, I
Right.
think. And I'm sure he struggled some with it, going through
Absolutely.
some stuff. You know what I mean? Like he talked about some of the things that he went through. But it's just, I'm super ecstatic that we're sitting here today, or we had, sat here today and talked with him about this journey he went through.
Right. I love that he is a great example of driven by big vision.
Mm-hmm.
That, initially it was going to be the race car driver.
Right.
Right. He was
Right.
going to be professional. And then when that fell through, he went toward, the bodybuilding. First professional body with a heart issue. Right.
Right. Right.
And when that didn't work, now he's like, this can be the first successful mobile franchise in the nation.
Right.
And I think he's done his homework
Yes.
enough to know that he would be the first beyond a couple of little ones here and there.
Right.
And so I love that he's driven by big vision. That's cool.
I do too.
That's cool.
It was really good.
Yeah. It's kind of, him and I kind of get together and we start to spiral off each other.
Yeah, oh, really?
With idea after idea. And we're like, ooh, ooh. So it's probably bad. But
That's too funny.
But I just love seeing the growth in him, even over the last few months of just taking some new steps of expanding his business, hiring people, and it's really cool, really cool.
Yeah, those steps are huge, especially when you've come from a position of you didn't know what was next.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Yeah,
but super thankful that Cody joined us, and thanks, Cody. Shout out to you, and thanks for joining us again today.
yeah, and you guys don't forget about the Peace Summit coming up on the 17th of November. You can sign up online. All the links will be in the show notes. And otherwise, give us a like, comment, subscribe, shoot us an email, all that fun stuff.
Right.
We would love to hear from you.
Sounds good.
And if you are, I tell you what we'd love to hear is if people are going through the Peace Index on their own.
Oh, yes.
And you want to share with us, kind of let you know, because accountability is huge.
Mhm.
And, if you would like to share that with us,
Send us an
we'd
email.
love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure.
Love to. So,
Sure.
right on. Hey, you guys have a great week.
Thanks.
See you next time.
See you next time.
All right. Bye.